name is John Kegabayan, and we're at the Agricultural History Project in the Snyder Building.
My name is Pat Johns. I've been a volunteer here in some capacity or another with the organization since about 1988 or 89. I've been with the museum itself when I retired in 2002 from the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. I started volunteering here to develop the exhibits, do all the background research on the exhibits.
Jess Brown. I'm Executive Director of the Santa Cruz County Farm Bureau and also Executive Director of the educational organization Agriculture.
We're establishing a library and an archive upstairs, and I continue to work on organizing that so the materials that we have are accessible to people to come and research. And we've had graduate students from Stanford and Santa Clara and Berkeley come and use our research facilities.
Two of the most exciting things about working in the Watsonville area with the ag community, I feel, is the Focus Agriculture program set up under the organization Agriculture. It's a success because people in the community want to learn more about agriculture, so they're willing to commit one day a month for 9 months each year. We're in our 22nd year of doing this to learn about agriculture. And it's the people in the community giving their time, but the other component is the people in agriculture are willing to give of their time, spend presenting information, have people out on their farms. It's wonderful, and it just received a national award, this Focus Agriculture program that will be presented in Atlanta, Georgia in early January.
When Hubert Wyckoff was president of the Pearl Valley Historical Association, and he approached the fair about doing an exhibit at that time, or doing a pioneer village is what he wanted to do. Beginning in the 70s, for some reason interest was not there to continue it. Hubert passed away, and then so it basically stayed in a few people in the community who was involved at that time, including myself, tried to preserve what we had collected so that at some day we would hope to be able to preserve it forever. But so in 1986, a group of 16 people got together, and from that time on, we created a nonprofit organization that is now the Agriculture History Project, and we've also then built and raised the funds and everything. The community has been really good. Everything we have is paid for, and we pay as we go.
The most interesting and exciting things about the ag community is how they adapt. If you look back at the history of agriculture in Santa Cruz County, the crops that were grown, in 2 centuries ago, I guess, are so different than what's being grown today, and that's just because the growers have adapted to the marketplace, and they couldn't exist financially or sustain themselves if they were growing those old crops. So they keep changing. I think that's wonderful.
Jason Morgan with Morgan Farms. Well, I got into strawberries, when I was a kid. I worked a little bit for my dad, started liking it, and then got older and wanted to do my own thing, so moved elsewhere. And then about 5 years ago I came back, or 7 years ago, came back and started working with my dad again, and just fell in love with it again and wanted to do it, so here I am on my own. I like being out here every day and providing something that I really love and taste, and to the to the United States or to the world, and it's just fun for me being out here every day and being on a tractor, or working out here in the dirt.
TM Irrigation Specialties Company Inc. has been in business since 1997. What I enjoy about Watsonville is how it's a small community, but yet it's a tight community, which I see, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I enjoy going to our local gatherings, such as the fair, and helping out with the 4-H kids. My background in the agricultural industry is my parents grew strawberries for many years.
Some of the early equipment that we have here in the museum, we have quite a collection of early milking machines, which was one step up from the milkman having to milk the cows by hand. We have a collection of milk cans also here in the museum, of everything from cream size cans up to the heavy milk cans that the farmer would have put out beside the road and waited for the milk truck to come along and pick up.
When I grew up back in the 1930s, I was born in 1935. When I grew up, we never used any commercial fertilizer. All the fertilizer we used was from the animals. We had our dairy cows, we fertilized our land, and the land sustained all of us. We drank our water from the land. Today, I myself drink water from a bottle because I don't like that taste of the chlorine. We never chlorinated any of our water. I mean, and I've lived that period of time, and I understand why people want to go back to it, because we had it was enjoyable, and didn't have to worry about all the things you have to worry about today in your food and stuff.
My name is Dick Bischotte, and I'm owner of Lakeside Organic Gardens. I like farming in Watsonville because of the climate is probably the biggest thing. If you go 10 miles away, you hit a completely different climate. Hollister, this is a cool, mild climate all through the summer. We're able to grow crops where you can't grow them anywhere else in the United States. I mean, crops like, cauliflower and spinach and things. It's so hot in other areas you can't grow it, but we can grow them right here along the coast and be pretty successful. Broccoli, cauliflower, baby broccoli, items like that. So that's one of the biggest things. And I think, just the people in this area has just been phenomenal.
My name is Joan Miller. I've lived in Watsonville for 54 years. My father's still alive. My mother passed away 23 years ago. He's a farmer for Driscoll strawberries.
The reactions that people have when they come through the museum, especially people that do not live in California, that visit from other parts of the world, is how unique and how the history of agriculture is in the Central Coast. We live in an area where you can grow over 75 to 80 different food crops for our dinner table at any one time. Any other part of the world, you're basically limited to maybe milk, producing milk, where you raise corn, oats, and wheat to feed the animals, and the rest of it then maybe a home garden for the family. But very little commercial like we have in this area today.
We do organic vegetables, 40 different types of vegetables. We do everything from leafy vegetables like arugula, spinach, cilantro, doing radishes, carrots, parsleys. We do zucchini squash, beans, peppers, bell peppers, jalapeno peppers, broccoli, cauliflower, celery, head lettuce, leaf lettuce, baby broccoli, cabbage.
After I finished school, I came to work for TM Irrigation, and after about 5 years, I acquired the company. While working here, it brought back memories of when I was a child running around in strawberry fields, how they irrigated back then by furrow flood irrigation compared to now, the new drip tape that was available, pressure compensating drippers. Everything was so new to me and exciting, and it gave me that passion to learn more. And so by learning more, I was able to help, the farmers that are coming to introduce new products, new ways of irrigating, new ways of saving water.
All through the 1800s, 1900s, horses were up in the first half of the 1900s, the horses were the primary source of power. And, many farmers in this area, family farms, even had 60, 70 teams of horses to farm row crop land. When the tractor came out into the late 30s, early 40s, many of the farmers replaced their horses with tractors where they could work longer hours and do more production. The implement dealers, this International, John Deere, Ellis Chalmers, all of them, their goal was to replace the horse on the farm. And they succeeded.
Yeah, my name's Jaime Rodriguez. and business name is Joe's Body Shop. Well, my dad pretty much taught me everything that I know now. I mean, ever since, you know, from middle school up to high school, and then when I was 17, that's when he started teaching me how to paint. He did a lot of tractor work for, you know, for the fields. Hector's from Hector's Bakery. He still comes in and brings in his work. And there's this other guy, a good friend of my dad's. His name's Charlie. He has his own farm, like horse trailers, and he's got a couple of tractors that he doesn't bring to the shop, but we go and do them at his place. Some of the people we do auto body work for on their cars. They bring us strawberries, raspberries, apples.
My business life really started when I was about 10 years old. I used to ride with my dad, and he worked for a spray company and sold sprays, and that's where I started my career. Was at 10 years old, riding around with him, learning how to spray fields, why they sprayed, you know, learning about pests and learning about agribusiness in general and how it was run, how fields were irrigated and everything else. Didn't really go to college and learn anything. Came out from high school, just started farming on my own, learning as, you know, as things went along. And over a period of years, I always felt, you know, being from a background of sprays and everything, when you had a problem, you sprayed. And I think the biggest thing is you know, I almost consider it a miracle that where celery, we would spray 15 to 20 times to bring it to harvest. And we'd always have a problem with a little pest called leaf miner. And we would battle that day after day, and now being able, and it's one crop I said, well, we can get into organic, but we'll never be able to grow celery. So now the big thing to me is to be able to take crops that we said impossible to grow, and last year was the first year we're growing organic celery. We didn't spray for anything the whole year. We had virtually no insect problems the whole year, and our production was higher than the conventional.
We work with some organic farmers, and organic farming is quite a bit different because we got to be really careful with filtration. Their ways of fertilizing are a lot different. You know, the supplies that we would be able to supply a new farmer coming into the ag industry would be, first of all, a filtration system. We supply filters. We supply PVC main line. We also supply the drip tape. We supply the oval hose if they prefer to use oval hose. Every connection, elbow, PVC fittings to complete your system. And also we can also set up different systems which for those who need more pressure, their well doesn't produce pressure, produces volume of water. So therefore we add a pressure tank, a booster pump to help that water get to the other side of the ranch, depending on, you know, how far it is, and allow for sprinklers. When someone wants to sprinkle, they need more pressure than drip. So a booster pump and pressure tanks therefore are installed to allow a steady high pressure to allow the sprinklers to perform.
Our collection consists now of well over 15,000 artifacts, ranging all the way from books. In fact, today we just received the history of agriculture, the United States history of agriculture each year. They do a book, a census and we've received that all the way to the tractors. But in the Codiga Center, we have the exhibits that explain the history of agriculture and what life was like here. And then in the Snyder and Restoration Barn, where we're at today, we have the tractors, the buggies, the wagons, and all the bigger equipment. And then in the Porter building, we have all the horse-drawn equipment that was later converted to tractor, but we do have some original horse-drawn equipment in the building. It's all original.
We have a lot of artifacts for the home. One of our latest exhibits, newest exhibits, is this kitchen, as it might have been in maybe the 1930s, before there was very much electricity available. We have old grinders, such as meat grinders and cheese grinders that would have been used. We have a mayonnaise making jar. When we have school visits, one of the things I try and emphasize with the students is you can't, back in the 30s, there were no big, huge grocery stores like we have today. So you didn't just go down to Safeway if you wanted a jar of mayonnaise. You probably made your own mayonnaise right when you wanted to use it. And you didn't have the refrigeration to be able to keep a lot of food. So we do have a sample of an old ice box, and it always kind of fascinates the school children when I show them how much room there is available in the inside of it and ask them to imagine if all of the food they have in their refrigerator at home would fit inside of there. And I haven't had one yet say that yes it would. We have a collection of canned goods to represent the home canning that people did, because they took the abundance of the crops in the summer and preserved them so that they had them to use in the fall and the winter times. We have a sample of some cookware and that may have been used in the 30s or the 40s. In the Legacy and the Carols exhibit, we have some of the saddles and the brands that were used around here locally. Some of the lariats, the shaps that were used by the men and women who were doing the brandings or working with the cattle. We also have quite a collection of veterinary tools that were used with the cattle, and that's another thing. Well, kids don't understand that sometimes cows have to have shots and vaccinations just like they do, and they get or take pills like kids do, and so they get pretty fascinated with looking at those things. We have some artifacts in our apple exhibit of an old nail stripper and shook that was used to make the wooden boxes for the apples. And we have a video that demonstrates the process that people went through with that. We have an apple hand truck that would have been used at the loading docks when the wagon loads of wooden apple boxes came into the railroad and used to load the boxes onto the railroad cars. We have an apple press that would have been used for making apple cider. We have a field ladder, one of the tall ones that would have been used with the old style of apple trees that grew real tall, and they had to get up on those. I have a card. We also, in our Pick Now, Eat Later exhibit, which is about the various food preservation techniques that have been either developed or used here in the Pajaro Valley. We have some examples of dehydrating racks where the apricots would have been laid out to dry on and then sulfured, which was a very popular technique here 30, 40 years ago. You rarely see that anymore. We have an old apple peeling machine, as would have been used in the dryers or in slicing the apples for the frozen apples that were made, and that was a huge industry here, both drawing and freezing of apples. We have some examples of early canning. What we were really frozen food production plants here went by the name of canneries, and that was because of the earlier industry here that was canning, putting food into cans and sealing them, and the name stuck even though the method of preserving the food from canning to quick freezing changed. The name maintained with canneries.
Lettuce is probably one of our more common items that we deal with all the time. So lettuce, Mo Your Hero lettuce, usually we pre-irrigate the ground and we basically grow a crop of weeds, and then we go in and we take a propane burner and we burn off those weeds, and then we plant our transplants in that bed, and there's virtually no weeds, which is completely different than the conventional people that would go ahead and put a herbicide on the ground that will control the weeds so they can plant there. So once we burn off that first crop of weeds, we have very little more fresh weeds that come up during that first 2 or 3 weeks while that plant's getting established. So we irrigate that for probably about 10 days. We grow that crop, and about after 14 days we come in, take out any weeds, put fertilizer on there, keep it irrigating, another fertilizer, and irrigate again. Probably from the time we transplant to the time we actually harvesting, we're probably talking around 40 days, 42 days, something like that. We're ready to harvest. Bring in a harvesting crew. We walk the fields and we determine what day would be the right day to harvest there. We bring in a harvesting crew with a packing machine, and they basically cut ahead of the machine with their knives. They trim off any mildew, any decay they find on the lettuce. They put it on a table where the packers at that point go ahead and pack that lettuce into usually wax cartons. And as they're packing that, when they put in one layer, they wash the butts of the lettuce off to keep it all clean and fresh. Once that's packed, it goes on to a trailer. The trailer's delivered to the cooler. At the cooling level, we put that into a hydrovac, the hydrovac is a cooling process where it actually vacuums out the hot air out of the product while pouring water, fresh, cold water over the product. So if you just strictly vacuum, will dehydrate the lettuce. By adding water back into the equation, you're able to keep that fresh and clean. Once it's cooled, then it goes into the cooler for storage. Could be stored anywhere from 1 to 7 days in the cooler. Shipped out at that point anywhere across the country. Trucks arrive there to cooler. Orders are taken at the cooling level, and those orders are filled, loaded on trucks, and then they're off to the end buyer. Broccoli's probably our number one item that we use, what we call ice injection, and so my kids call that a snow cone maker. It basically we blend water and crushed ice into a slurry mix, very similar to like a snow cone, and if snow cone, when they put in there, it's almost like a liquid. And then so we basically pump that into the boxes, completely fill the boxes with the slurry mix. At that point, the water drains off and leaves a complete block of ice around the product. At that point, we can load that anywhere, ship it anywhere in the United States. As long as it means cool, it's usually good for 3 to 4 weeks easily, because it's the next best thing to frozen broccoli. Still fresh, but it's encased in ice. So as it ships, it holds it fresh, clean. It won't let it dehydrate.
And a lot of the implements that we have in the collection, including a lot of these little tractors, come from a family farm, where the father and the mother, more than likely the father and the mother and all the kids work together to provide enough income for them to sustain themselves. Later on, in the 40s and 50s, then we started where the one parent at least had to work in order to keep enough money in the household to work. But prior to that, it was just the family doing everything together.
Before we started farming together, we saw a little of each other. We might talk on the phone once a week, once a month. Now we see each other every day, and we talk several times a day, and it's nice to be close to your son, and it's real enjoyable in that way. I enjoy it more than when I was farming on my own.
I grew up with this stuff. I've used this stuff, and to see our generation today have no idea where their food comes from, and actually to preserve some of that history and to be able to convey that to younger people and to middle-aged people the same. I mean, their parents. Because a lot of people have no idea that they can go out and make their own butter and do these things. They think everything should come from a grocery store. So the satisfaction of having this all here, preserving some of these implements that I drove as a kid. I drove that when I was 9 years old. And then I won't let anybody else drive it at 9 years old, but anyway, to preserve some of that history so that people, generations coming up, will kind of get an understanding of where their food comes from, the work that our forefathers had to go through to make it happen.
People ask me a lot of times, why is your business flourishing? The economy's down, people, you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, so why is that when the economy's bad? And my answer is that I think a lot of people today are looking at their health and looking at their, it's not just today, it's long term, it's their whole life. And there's a certain amount of fear factor that goes with that, and there's a certain amount of reality that says, you know, if we could run our whole life without having any chemicals, that'd be great. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, but I think a lot of people have the feeling we can't do that. You know, and I say, yes, we can do it, but it's going to take a lot of effort on not just our part, but you know, all the way through society in general, to adjust their lifestyle around, you know, being able to wean ourselves off of these chemicals. And so I think, you know, I think it's important that we're able to offer that. I don't recommend that everybody in the world change to organic eating today, but I think that's a viable option for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people really appreciate being able to have that as an option. And you know, I eat organic whenever I can, but if there's no organic available, I'm still going to eat my vegetables. You know, I think it's, you know, it's just the way it is. But you know, but I think it's important to have that available to people as we move forward. A lot of people have, you know, allergies. A lot of people have, you know, different conditions that require them to eat organic or stay away from the chemicals, and I think that's a viable option.
Hi, I'm Chef Sequoia Cheney, and we are at Wonderfully Raw at Three Trees Retreat in Watsonville, California. Our body produces enzymes, but at times they can be depleted, so you want to eat foods that have those enzymes so you don't deplete the ones your body is making. I started the journey of investigating all different diet and food plans and finding out which one was the best for me. So I ended up studying to be a raw food chef. And what we do here at Wonderfully Raw is we offer cooking classes and the opportunity for people who are dealing with poor health or not feeling well, or even just on the aging process or wanting to lose weight. We're giving them the tools and the resources to create nutritious, healthy foods that will support their bodies. And that's what we do here at Wonderfully Raw.
When we were getting out of conventional, getting organic, I mean, people thought I was crazy. They really thought, wow, the kid has lost his marbles. He's done, man. He's on his last leg, you know. But we had a plan, and it took us. I mean, we basically went broke implementing that plan and survived being broke to come out of it. And you know, that's you know, one of my best friends calls me the phoenix of the farming industry, because you know, we were in ashes and over converting to the organic deal. You know, we rose from the ashes and we survived. You know, and it's quite a story if we went through how bad things got to where we are today. You know, and so.
Again, as far as what we'd like to see in the future, I think it's involving the next generation to come in and learn about what we have gathered here, and to have the interest and, as you said, the passion to continue that on.